more opportunities for people to take accountability and actually manage their finances going on.
Yeah, Brad. So if people, I understand what you're saying, because that scenario would say that if you're negotiating and then you cut this and then increase that. So the thing is, I would think that if people have come to consensus that these welfare programs are not sustainable, then they would do or cut the cuts all around. And if they had acceded to cutting the Social Security or just outright terminate it, but with the same mindset, they would have agreed to cut all other programs as well. I mean, this is the same. It would be built on the same principle, like cutting welfare, not just Social Security, as a bargaining chip.
Yeah, but SNAP isn't where we get most of our debt from. It's Social Security, Medicare, and disability insurance. Disability insurance actually makes up a hefty portion of mandatory spending.
Listen, these are all wealth redistribution schemes and debt creation scams. Again, stop the borrowing, stop the spending. If we stop the spending at the federal level, the stock market crashes and we lose 50 trillion there or 100 trillion there. There's no easy way out of this. We have to stop the artificial economy and get back to a real economy. This is one huge debt scam. There will be no debt jubilee. There will just be an implosion and everyone is going to get fucked. And that's the truth. I am complete.
Well, then you don't chop off the arm and let yourself bleed to death. Your argument is essentially, hey, we're probably going to bleed to death when we chop our arm off, but let's go ahead and chop that fucker off anyway.
Well, look at in realistic presence. So right now, like we'll just take it. Work requirements are under these programs, right? You know, volunteer work. What is it? 20, 40 hours, whatever it is. That is receiving massive backlash from the population. That's just to add work or volunteer requirements. So if that is such a hard pill for the majority of the American populace to swallow, if you cut Social Security, you better have a way to politically, in this environment, you better have a plan to alleviate what will actually occur. And like Jason, I think understands what I'm getting at. But just cutting the spending, you have to govern people. That's the equation you're not accounting for. This isn't a stock ledger. This isn't an Excel spreadsheet. You have to govern people. And if you add the people equation, you have to figure out how to get them convinced that Social Security is a defunct program. It's not really viable. It doesn't help promote us. It hurts us. You have to show that. Then when you cut it, you have to ensure that people are not going to crash and burn in massive ways, which will occur. So how do you prevent that?
Can I run a thought towards that? Universal income doesn't necessarily have to be a handout. It could be a way where people are working to save all the stuff that's negative in the planet. Quick example, a dump truck can come to my house every month instead of once a week. So all that energy that these big trucks are making, moving this to the landfill and stuff like that, what if universal income, I get paid for the stuff that I do. I compost everything. Nothing organic leaves my house. What if, and I'm talking about residential, granted, in residential areas, but I contend we could do it in the cities too with a little bit more thought on the subject. But universal income, we all get paid a check. Because we all know that technological unemployment is happening. People are going to be losing their job. There's going to be more and more of us wondering what to do with ourselves. And they're going to find themselves at home. At the very least, what you can do is stop organics from going to the landfill where they do no good. That's the biodiversity lost in our updated growing system. So if we could...
We're talking about getting rid of Social Security because it's too expensive. It's like $1.5 trillion a year. And you're talking about adding like an additional $5 trillion in spending. Like where are we going to get that money, man? It doesn't grow on trees. Where does it come from?
You're not getting rid of Social Security because people have paid in for decades, and that's not going to happen.
Can I go? Can I ask my question?
Please do.
Mark, I think you were
Of
going
course.
to say something. At least I thought you were going to say something.
No, I think Marty's going to jump in.
So I think the last speaker really is emphasizing my point when Social Security is like it should be like a piggy bank. You put a little, you work hard, and you put a little to the side for the future when you want to retire. But I feel like if you actually want to start cutting something, it should be food stamps, because the current system that we have, if you make $1 more than whatever limit that they give you, you could lose your food stamps. So people start actually not taking that raise because they have so much involved to lose for that little dollar that they're gonna gain. And I feel like that's actually something that keeps Americans down. Rather than giving something for free, you work and you could get that benefit of a food stamp type of program. But if we're gonna cut something that's spending and
Oh no, that was totally my fault. I was friending him. I'm so sorry.
Marty, you're coming back
okay.
No, that was fun. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Kristen moved you. Kristen's
Marty,
a woman.
I'm
She doesn't
so
know how to work the
sorry.
tools.
This is why I'm terrible at modding. I was friending him.
No, you're fine. Look, your specialty is making sandwiches, not modding rooms. We get it.
Wow.
I thought it was crocheting.
Marty,
was.
so I looked it up. The
It's
Supplemental
also,
Nutrition Assistance Program makes up 1.5% of overall U.S. spending.
I'm sorry, Ray.
Let Marty finish his statement, Marshall, if you could, please.
So I don't know where you last heard me, but if a program that actually starts causing harm, it's like a sinking sandstorm. I think we should start focusing more on that, or making it better for people who are on it to not always have to depend on it for basic necessities like even housing. These are types of things that I've even heard Democrat Congress politicians basically talking about it. And rather than going towards Social Security, where it just basically you put in for when you're actually working for retirement, I feel like there's actually benefit there. So if we actually want to cut spending, we should cut it in a way to make food stamps not something that you're always gonna have to depend on, and it could be programs where that could end up making us save money and not have people go hungry.
Yeah, Marty, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program in fiscal year 2023 was $115 billion, made up approximately 1.84% of the entire federal budget. Fiscal year 2024, SNAP was $100.3 billion. That represents 1.5% of overall U.S. spending. It's like getting rid of foreign aid. Don't get me wrong, I understand the concept of you start small and you work your way up. But if we're being real about the drivers of our debt and the drivers of our expense, SNAP is not among those drivers.
It's about the principle, Marshall.
Marshall, if I may, Tucker Carlson just had a guy on that says that banks make the money. They have no tangible, yet it just comes out of nothing. For some reason, they are able to make money. So why can't we just make a ton of money and feed everybody? How come we can't do that?
I'm confused.
Go ahead, Marshall.
Make a ton of money and feed everybody? Like I'm not following.
These people believe that you can create an infinite amount of fiat and that it will have no repercussions. They're delusional and low IQ.
They do, but let's try to explain to him why, okay? And Mark is correct that banks can make money. How do they make money? By issuing loans on existing money. And that's why banks have what is called a controller, which is some kind of government officer installed there to control what they're doing with the currency. And so they do have a currency making power. And there's some obscure paper on this. I'll have to go see if I can.
So how come they can't do that with Social Security?
So the problem with making more money is that the value of money is backed by the value of the exchange of goods. Okay. And that you cannot increase the value of the exchange of goods by increasing the number of units of money in the world. So it doesn't solve the problem. You don't create more food by creating more money to buy it with. So the real question is, how do you get the food to the places where it needs to go? And how do you get this surplus of food that you need to give to unproductive people and so on? That's not a problem that's solved by making money. So by manufacturing money. So this is the basic misunderstanding of what you're talking about. You're saying, let's devalue everyone's money, basically, so that we can take this extra money we created and use it to get the food and whatever. Then you are basically taxing the whole economy in an extremely uniform way. And then you have to ask yourself, is this the right way? You still have to ask yourself, is this the right tax policy? That's an extremely regressive tax, by the way. And I mean, is that the right tax policy? And you don't get away from asking and answering that question just by saying, let's make more money. You're saying, okay, we're going to tax everyone a uniform rate and then give that to people who don't have food. Okay, that's a proposal, but that's not like a hand-wavy solution that does away with all these questions we're asking. So that's still taxing and then spending. That's what that amounts to.
I'm curious if we're going to talk about, so obviously the debt was number one here in this poll. I'm curious if anyone's interested in talking about what was the second most voted poll of the Islamic extremism, as in what is the biggest threat to America?
Do you all still believe that Islamic extremism is the number one, it's just a question, is the number one threat to America?
According to the polls, it's at least according to this room, it's number two.
The U.S. defense establishment doesn't believe that. When they do their annual threat assessment and budget assessment to Congress, they rank Islamic terrorism third, I believe, in the list of priorities. It's first China, then Russia, then either Iran or terrorism or both. I can't.
Sabina, do you think that there's a Muslim congressman or senator that ever voted to be a fiscal conservative and to be prudent with spending money? Or do you think Muslim senators and congresspeople have no problem borrowing and spending on behalf of the American people? What do you think, Sabina?
Spending money doesn't have anything to do with whether one is a Muslim or not.
Yeah.
I think
quick question. Sorry, Sabina, super quick question. I just want clarification. So, Marshall, do you know what the criteria that the government bases these threats on?
They come under the National Defense Authorization Act, and it's a combination of internal research and external research. Would you like me to? I'm in a pharmacy where I'm kind of able to do it. You want me to pull up the 2024 defense estimate for you? I don't mind.
No. I guess maybe I'm not wording my question correctly.
Marshall, just get your prescription and don't worry about the Defense Authorization Act. We want you healthy and happy, Marshall.
Could you just tell us?
And make sure you have enough for us. So I rewatched The Sopranos recently, and towards the end, there's Tony Soprano's FBI buddies that were first, of course, watching him. One of his FBI guys got reassigned to Middle East affairs, and so he's not hawking Tony anymore, but as a favor, he says, we know that there's works that are being taken against you because they're bugging. They're bugging phones and such of the New York family or whatever. So is it that kind of level where our CIA agents are gathering intel and they're basing the level of threat on bugging Al Qaeda or whomever might be the threat?
Intelligence, signals intelligence, and financial intelligence all go into making up the Defense Authorization Act, as well as the National Defense Estimate. So it's National Defense Act.
Yeah, the NDAA is $1 trillion line item a year. $1 trillion a year.
Look, people, it's just analysts estimated.
Yeah.
There's no signal intelligence that's going to tell you these guys are 10% threat.
That's not my point. He was asking what all they use.
Right.
And they do use signal intelligence to write that.
American.
They use signal intelligence to produce their estimate, but they take a bunch of analysts and they say, analyst, give me an estimate. Analyst 2, give me an estimate. Analyst 3, give me an estimate.
Right,
And
I
then
get
they
that,
take-
Jason. I get
and
that.
then they
But
take the median or
what
something.
numbers, what factors do they change from year to year? Is it
We
the
spend-
conflict in Israel?
If I could
that's-
just,
they
if I
may
could
look
just,
at that, but they
Oh.
may look at that, but there's not like a number that says if there's a conflict in Israel, there is a 70% chance or something like that. There is not something like that. They just have estimates.
yeah, I would argue that Islamic aggression in the Middle East would be a threat to America's allies, which would include Israel. But I'm not sure if it's like a direct threat to America. But Mark Rubio was just recently talking about mass migration from South America, and I would assume probably that's more of a immediate threat to America. But,
We
I
spend
could be wrong.
$2.7 billion a day
I
on a
personally don't
security
find that
force
to
to
be
defend the
a
United
threat.
States of
It's-
America.
Marshall-
$2.7 billion a day
Marshall,
for a
I would
police
assume-
department?
Shut up.
No, but Marsha, I would assume that you would agree with that, right? Because there's a difference between, just real quick, if I could just get my question across, right? There's a difference between like genuine immigration versus like migration, which is what Mark Rubio talks about, which is mass migration. And one of the few people I heard about that were talking about that was you, Marshall, and the need for a more secure border in the south. So you don't consider that
I don't.
a threat?